So I welcome you all, and we will begin our session with 30 seconds of silence. So we just observe it to calm our mind. Be with your breath, watch any body movement, and try and still yourself. You can open your eyes. Okay. So I'm assuming there would be people who do not know Hindi at all. So I don't know how correct is this assumption, but in the process, I do tend to use the language. This language is very close to my heart. If given a choice, I would not talk in English at all. So any place that you are not able to catch up with me, please stop me there so that I explain the same in English as well. And if you get to understand, wonderful. So as I was saying, let's hear from you all. How much of Kabir are you acquainted with? Yes, Priyaji. So you can unmute yourself and you can share.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Actually मैं काफ़ी ऐसा बोल सकती हूँ कि फ़ैन हूँ और मैं बिलीव करती हूँ कि उनके जो दोहे हैं वो हम असल ज़िंदगी में अप्लाई करते हैं तो बहुत मज़ा है।
Okay.
एक बोलूँगी घनिष्ठ संबंध है।
घनिष्ठ संबंध बहुत सुंदर. Very nice.
That's why I'm over here connected.
Wonderful. So how much of Kabir do we know? What is your idea of who Sant Kabir is? We have heard of him a lot. There are a lot of songs. You go to YouTube and it is full of Kabir Amritvani. You have people like Abida Parveen who only sings
Awesome.
Kabir and such awesome ones. We have so much coming from people like Anup Jalota and even Jagjit Singh, and then I can't stop taking the names. And then there are the great singers who have sung a lot of his stuff. But then, how much of Kabir do we understand? For us, who is Sant Kabir? Just one or two thoughts, maybe that will give us some idea. How do we understand him? Anybody would like to share? Anybody, whatever, basic, fundamental, that's all right. No judgments, nothing like that. Just want to understand where we are. Sarita, you would like to say something?
Yes, ma'am. According to me, Kabir was the one who could see one in everything. Discrimination was not there in his persona. वो बॉडी से ऊपर हो गए थे, उन्हें एक ही लगता था.
Okay. So he was beyond his body. He could see that oneness in everything. Very beautiful. Yes. So there is a caveat, I would say, in the process. It might happen that I go and break your belief. I question your belief, and you might feel a little hit or so. Bear with me is all that I would say. So it's Grace that's going to take over. I am no one to conduct this session. I do not have that capability. It's the Grace that has to flow. There is no other way that such sessions can actually happen. So with that invocation, let's begin. I am sharing one file. No, this does not allow me to share any file. So what I'm doing is I'm sharing a file in the WhatsApp group itself, which has got some couplets. And I think in the seekers group only you will find it there. Document. So yeah, it has gone. I'll just show a few couplets that I picked up also. The recording of the previous sessions that we did, this is the third session with Kabir that we're doing. So the previous sessions, they are available on YouTube. After the session, I'll share those links. So you can always go and listen to them also if you get time and if you wish.
सो ना मिले किसको पूछूं बात माता पिता सुत बंधवा.
Ma'am, please mute everybody now.
Yeah.
Please.
Ajay, who is this with Lenovo? Can I have the name, or is that the name?
This is Kavi. Kavi is the same.
Achha. So your name is Kabir only.
Kavi. This is Kavi.
Kavi. Okay. Okay.
Kavi.
Yeah. So Kavi is actually.
I'm sorry that I joined with the Lenovo name. No.
That's okay. You can always change it.
Right.
So the couplets that I have shared, I'm just showing the screen. You all can just take a look. These are 6 couplets that I just picked up for today. The first is Kabir garb na kijiye dehi dekhi surang, bichhure pe mela nahi jo kechuli bhujang. So the language would not be pure Hindi also. It is adapted to the local language that was used at that point in time. And so do not be worried about the translation. We will talk about all that. The second one is Chale gaye so na mile, kisko पूछूं बात, मात पिता सुत बांधवा, झूठा सब संगात. The third one is एक घड़ी आधी में पुनि आध, कबीर संगत साधु की कटे कोटि अपराध. The fourth one here is Mathura Kashi Dwarika, Haridwar Jagannath, Sadhu Sangati Hari Bhajan Bina, Kachu na aave haath. Then the other couplet is जो तो परा है फंद में निकलेगा कब अंध, माया मद तो को चढ़ा मत भूलें मति मंद. And the ones today that we have are not the common ones. These possibly have not been heard by any one of you before. And the last one is Kabir Maya Dakini. Kabir has this beautiful way of calling Maya, or what we call illusion, as Dakini, Papini, Thagni, and all these connotations he has given it. So Kabir Maya Dakini sab kahu ko khaye, daat uparu papini santo niyare jaye. So chai is not there. Santo niyare jaye. So these are the ones. So what I'm also do is I'll share the couplet that we will be doing in the chat box, so then you can directly pick it up from there also. Okay, let's pick up the first one. It's there in the chat box also. So Sant Kabir is something that, if I have to say that we have co-opted, it would not be an exaggeration. This exactly is how it has been. All his couplets we have actually picked up and used in our everyday social life to make, to kind of justify our actions and thoughts and all that. But Kabir is not somebody who comes from society. And as rightly said by Priyaji, and he is not in, he is beyond his body. He is not somebody who stays in the body in the sense that he is not identified with the body. He's somebody who is into that drashta bhav, who is into that witnessing zone. And that is why when we look at his couplets, and the other thing that I would love to talk about and stress here is, Kabir has also, rather he has been more known as the Bhakti saint. Bhakti का मार्ग हमारे यहाँ प्रशस्त किया गया है. We in India and then we in other religion, if I can say, or sects also, we have this path of bhakti. So for example, Sufism is the bhakti path that came out of Islam. And if you will actually go close to Sufism, if you will go close to Sufism, it's a request for each one of you to please mute yourself. So if you go to Sufism, you will see that a lot that Islam talks of, it goes ahead and defies it. But then that's a different ball game altogether. We'll talk about it someday. So Kabir is known as a Bhakti saint. However, he is one of the saint who is also equally knowledgeable. Okay. Who is equally knowledgeable. Now, a lot of you have heard of Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita talks of 4 paths. 4 मार्गों की बात करते हैं, और ज्यादातर कई मार्ग हैं. ये कहा जाए कि हम जितने लोग हैं उतने मार्ग हैं, तो गलत नहीं होगा. It would not be wrong to say that as many people, as many pathways. Krishnamurti says truth is a pathless land. So it's a path which was never created for us. It was definitely created by the one who walked on it. It is not something that can be cooked and given, that this is the recipe and you take and you can move on this, and you can sort out your life, your mind, and you can live in that bliss or joy or things like that. So typically, although it's 4 paths that is talked about, which is the path of knowledge, we have path of devotion, then there is path of what we call as Hatha Yoga, and then there is path of action, which is the Karma Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Hatha Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga is a path of surrender. Surrender to whom? We do not know. Who is surrendering? The moment this who is surrendering comes into the picture, the one who is surrendering considers himself bigger than surrender. That's the beauty. And so who is surrendering is never a question. Just surrender is always the way. That is how it has to be. So there is surrender, and in that surrender, there is complete clarity of what is happening, of this, who, the actor, the doer, the karta. There is complete clarity of all that, which is nothing but the Jnana Yoga, or the path of knowledge. So you go to Meera. Meera, she had her guru called Raidas, and Raidas was a cobbler by profession. So it is not that those who have walked on the path of devotion, on the path of surrender, they were superstitious. No, it is not like that. Typically, when we look them from a distance, this is how we feel. एक आप दूर से देखेंगे उनको तो आपको लगेगा कि ये क्या है यार? What is this? मीरा गा रही हैं. I don't know who is this Krishna. She has no clue. She has just got some idol in her hand and she's just singing. But they know what they are doing. Where is the surrender? The surrender is not at the wrong place. It is at the right place. And that's why devotion without that tadka of Gyan or beauty of Gyan is always half-baked thing. It will never blossom to its complete potential. In fact, there are good chances that it turns to superstition. The way it typically happens in our life, we pick up rituals. We don't even question them. We don't even take that which I am doing currently. Is it relevant right now? Where is it coming from? And every ritual we do, if you can become little more aware of the kind of discussion that we have about those, हम तो ये करते हैं, हमारे घर में तो ऐसा होता है. We have no clue what that deity means to us, what that idol means to us. Why is it in that idol form? Why is it that particular form given to the deity? What energy is it talking of? We have no clue of any of the things. But what we surely know is हमारे घर में तो ऐसा होता है और हम ऐसा करते हैं. This is how it is performed at our house, and this is what we observe. And in this entire talk, there are moments when it starts to get intense and it gets heated, wherein it is, nay, this is the right way, and I learned it from that place, and I was told like that, and we feel so good when doing it this way. Achha, you do it like that. You don't do it like this. No, we do it like this. We do not have a slightest of clue why are we doing it. What is it signifying? Does it light something within us? Does it ignite something within us? Does it touch something within us? Does it make us more compassionate? Does it make us more inclusive? Does it make us more inclusive? We do not have any such idea, but we go ahead and just follow. So when bhakti or devotion just happens like that, this is what it starts to turn to. Yeah? So this is what it starts to turn to. And that is why it becomes important to know what I am doing, why I'm doing, and who in me is doing, which space am I doing it from. I'm experiencing some disturbance. Is it with everyone? I'm just muting everyone, please. So Sharad has a concern. Are we not digressing from Kabir? No, we are not digressing from Kabir. Kabir is not something that can be digressed from. In fact, none of these people are separate. Kabir is as much as Upanishad is Kabir. Kabir is as much as surrender and devotion, as much as any other saint is, or Sufism is, or any other sect is. And this background becomes very important if you want to really understand what Kabir had been trying to say. And that is why I had picked up this background to share with you all. So let's see what Kabir is saying with his first couplet. Kabir garb na kijiye. Kabir, do not take pride. Dehi dekhi surang. Dehi is the body. Dekhi is to see. Surang is something which is very beautifully shaped. Bichhure pe mela nahi. Bichhure is to get parted. So once you get parted, mela is milna, to meet. So once you get parted, there is no scope of meeting it again. Jyo kechuli bhujang. And the example that he is quoting is in exactly the way that the snake, bhujang means snake, kechuli is the cover that it leaves after a certain time, and we know snake goes into that process wherein it leaves back its skin. That skin is called kechuli. So Kabir is saying, Kabir garb na kijiye, dehi dekhi surang. बिछुरे पे मेला नहीं, ज्यों के केचुली भुजंग. Now this is a big question or a good slap on our face. In the world where we live, which has body as one central identity or body at the center. If you look at everything today that we do, it is very, very body centric, even though it does not look like. And let's look at it a little more deeply. Every couplet demands that we go into it deeply, check layer by layer, and see what it gives us for us to live, for us to be more peaceful, more joyful. Where are our miseries coming from? So Kabir questions that the body that we have made to be the center of our living, the food that we eat is for the gratification of the body, the gratification of the mind. And when we say body, mind is an automatic procedure because mind is nothing but extension of the body. So look at the way we pick up what we are eating. We want to be sure that what we are eating, how good it tastes. So there is huge sense gratification. So of course, tongue is involved, the way it tastes is involved, and the feeling of, wow, I loved this food. And I'm not sure if a few of you are also experiencing that that flavor of your favorite food maybe right now when we're talking of food. So the first thing that we do is all our eating is centered around the sense gratification towards our tongue. Now, if you look at closely, where is this liking coming from? Because we are very specific about what we like. You see, if I am a vegetarian, I have strong liking about certain vegetarian food, and I become a staunch ambassador of it. If I am a non-vegetarian, I tend to justify why must I eat non-vegetarian food. And none of it, I'm really looking from the perspective or the point that I eat to the extent it is needed to fuel the body because that energy is important. The food takes much more function, much more a central function in our life. And that is also very clear with the amount of restaurants flourishing, the amount of cuisines coming into picture, the amount of recipes available. We are not contented with the simple food at home. And it is not that it is only someday that we want tasty food. It is welcome as many times as possible. So the first way that we make this body a center is through what we eat. So Kavish ji says, I think it's not about food. We will get into then what it is about. The second thing, if you look at the way we treat our body, just being presentable doesn't work for us. The entire cosmetic industry is flourishing because the body is so important for us. And I might sound really ruthless. Kavi, he's not talking about Atman here. Let's go slow. Please do not jump. What Kabir says, it's not something that we can just jump into. We will have to look at every word and peel out every layer. Why is Kabir saying, Kabir garva na kijiye, dehi dekhi surang? When you see the body as that beautifully shaped thing and you take pride in it, and body is not just about the structure that we have, those, the biometrics that we have, 36, 26 and all those stuff, this much of bicep and such, this, कहते हैं ना वो सुरंग जैसा गला, and all those connotations that come into picture. No, it is not like that. And this is one way of him telling this to us. But when we peel it, we actually look at it deeply. We know how body is center of our life in various ways. So one way is surely food. The second way is the way we tend to decorate it. And let me share my example. The way I was brought up, the kind of environment I have lived in, the kind of conditioning that I had. Once upon a time, I was actually I call myself to be a chalta firta cosmetics ka dukan. What was I not using? And there was so much of consciousness that to step out without the basic makeup was so difficult for me. The confidence would go off. And it happens with many. If I am just in a shabby looking dress at times, it is difficult to feel confident. It is difficult to face people. It is difficult to face audience. So presentation for the sake of it is good. I mean, there is no problem in being presentable, but the problem is the way we start bringing it to the center, the amount of time that we invest or spend in. If you not notice yourself, I would love you to recall the time when you shop for yourself, when you shop clothes for yourself, how much of time you spend in getting the right texture and getting the right combination and getting the right colors, different clothes for different occasion, etc., etc., etc. I remember when I had started as a trainer some 12, 13 years back, Western clothing was so important for me. That's how I had seen it to be. That was the acceptability. And I was not very comfortable with Western clothing. Yet, that was a kind of industry norm that I understood. I did not pay attention, or I did not give importance to, is it comfortable for me? Am I able to just flow in those clothes? Because they definitely used to make me conscious. And it took me 2 years to just get rid of them. I got a few pairs stitched. It took me a hell lot of time to get the right fit, etc., etc. And then just 2 years, and all of them was shunted. And I came back in the typical Indian salwar kurta dress, because that was more comfortable to me. So how much, and then also paying attention to the way the wardrobes are full. We are not okay with 4 and 5 pair of clothes. We need so many for so many different occasions. And every time we go and shop, a lot of impulsive shopping happens. And when you look at your wardrobes and you question which one to wear, you will actually find, and this is research based, not more than 30% of clothes is what we regularly wear. Most of them, they stay inside. And we don't even get rid of them, because when we pull them out, we feel, "Arey, isko to yahan pehen sakte hain, this I can wear there." And we have so many associations, because when we bought them, we had created so many associations. And these associations are also the identities. So then Kabir is actually questioning, he is banging, he's asking, how much of importance do you give to your body in various ways? And then let's look at how much of importance we give when it comes to the comfort of it. Everything that we want, it has to be comfortable. The first thing anywhere that we go and sit, we look at is the seat comfortable? Is the environment comfortable? Think of yourself in the cinema hall when you go. You have went before the pandemic. The first thing that we sit is we check how comfortable is the seat. Am I all set to watch so that my body is not disturbing me? And a few of you who possibly would also be sitting for meditation processes, the techniques, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour or so. You would notice how the body irritates you to sit in one posture for longer. How much of effort does it demand to stay at one place? So the body demands comfort, and we all the time are ensuring that it has to be comfortable. We do not want to exactly all the time experience the weather, the nature, which is, and we will go ahead and figure out all the ways to make ourselves comfortable, or rather the body comfortable. So one example that I can share that will highlight our body centricity is everything that you do, you just question yourself. Why am I doing this? For what's comfort? What is that I want? And you peel layer and layer and layer, and you'll come to a space wherein you will say, at the end of the day, this body wants comfort. All our fears, I should have this kind of job, I should earn this much, I need to establish myself like this, etc., etc., etc. You peel them layer after layer. Where it actually comes to is, I am fearful of dying of hunger and all that. Yaar, khayenge piyenge kya? Ration pani, and these are our everyday word. Ration pani ka bhav pata chalega? So that becomes important. Sustaining the body always is the most important thing. And we do not sustain it. We go much, much, much beyond it. So then Kabir has to say, Kabir garb na kijiye. Kabir is bringing our attention to all the ways through which we make this body the center. And the amount of time that we invest in gym. In fact, if you look at the entire gymming culture, very few of the people actually go to gym to just stay healthy. So because the structure of the body is such that physical work is important for it. And if you do not keep it physically moving, it starts getting jammed. You do not move the hand and you just pull it up and keep it up for 2 minutes, and the way it will start paining at the shoulders, you will realize. The way it is created, it is supposed to do physical work. However, people do not go to gym to stay healthy. They go there to get a body which looks good. The biceps, there are standard measurements. The bicep should be this much. The chest should be this much. The waist should be this much. Where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? So in various ways, we have actually made body our center. And everything that we do revolves around it. Think of some occasion wherein, say, maybe marriage or something, wherein you had to go, or a party or something. How particular do we become to ensure that we wear the right thing? And how much of time do we spend in actually checking what am I wearing, what I'm going to wear, and how much of pre-planning we tend to do about what I'm going to wear. It's so difficult to stay comfortable in anything that we wear. We start feeling out of crowd. We start feeling out of place. We feel as if it's because of the clothes that there is acceptance. I remember this story, I think it was George Bernard Shaw, wherein he went to some event as a chief guest, he was invited, and he went in a very easygoing dress, and he was questioned, no, this is not how the chief guest must come. And then he was made to go back, come in the coat, in the suit and things like that. And it was very interesting when it came actually to the dinner after that, he actually picked up the spoon and put the food on his clothes. And when asked, he said, I was asked to go back and come in this clothes, which is an indication that I am not welcomed. It's the clothes which are welcome. So let the clothes have food. So in everything that we do, Kabir says, become conscious of how much of body centricity are you living with. In everything that you do, who are you doing it for? And he would actually go ahead and he will even talk of that what we are doing for our, what we are doing, we say for our children. We're actually not doing it for our children. We are doing it for our body, because it is through our children that we think we will be living after what we call as death. Children are not that important. It's our children which is important. Had it been just children, there are so many on the streets, adoption could have been rampant, but we do not go for adoption. And these days, especially IVF has become a big fashion. Why do we need our children, the children who have come through us? Why is the belongingness for the one which has come through us only? Why is that affection not for the one? Why is the affection not for the one who is there? That's another subtle way that the body identification shows itself. It might be difficult for us right now to accept it. But Kabir is a kind of person who doesn't talk sweet. We have heard him talking sweet, but he's the one who says that Kabira khada bazaar mein liye lukathi haath, jo ghar ja re apna chalahu hamare saath. Kabir is standing in the midst of the market with this lathi in his hand. The one who is ready to burn his house, jo ghar ja re apna, that person you come with me. So he is actually talking of burning the entire identification. He talks that straight. But because we haven't heard him that straight, we have heard his sweet couplets that which we can actually convert into the sweeter meanings. So these come to us as big jolt. And actually the entire life, Kabir had been jolting us through various ways. If you, his couplets are categorized under headings like Gun ko ang, Sadhu ko ang, those are the topics. So he has spoken a lot about Sangati, the kind of people that we stay with. He has spoken a lot about Maya and many, many things. So a few of you who, after the Upanishad introduction session, because there we only had a glimpse of it. Through this session, I intend to get into the deeper realities of our life. Because if you want to be a little easy, you want to be a little joyful, you want to be a little more, playful, then knowing the right things, having that clarity about life becomes non-negotiable. That is what we tend to do through these sessions. So at times, till now it has happened that it's just one couplet that we have talked about in the entire session. And that is all right, because it is not about the couplet. The couplet becomes the source for us to reflect to our life. And if we can't do that, then just talking about Kabir is of no use, because then that will not help change the quality of our everyday living. And Kabir gives the example of bichhude pe mile nahi. So why is Kabir asking us not to be body centric? He says, the moment you depart from it, you do not go back and meet. In exactly the same way that when the snake sheds its skin, it's gone. That identification is gone. And the snake can never come back to say, this was my skin that I shed. Nobody would know which snake's skin is this. So the identification breaks like that. And hence, if we are not able to move a little beyond the body, so and so that even now I'm being reminded of the hospital culture that we have now, get into the health sector. Where does it thrive onto? It thrives onto protecting the body. Even when being terminally ill, we do not want to face it. So with the pipes in the nose, being on ventilator for months, the body still must stay alive. That's the kind of body centricity that we live in. And why Kabir would say that? Even Upanishad will bring this to you always. And this is an important lesson for each one of us. Anything which is there on this earth, anything, it is called Marana Dharma. It is called the one destined to die. Its basic dharma, its basic nature, its basic religion is to die. So whatever comes into picture, someday it might have come into picture before we were born in this body. But if it has come into picture, it certainly will go. We celebrate this coming, but we have no or zero acceptance towards this going away. There are cultures which celebrate going away, and especially these cultures, you find them in the villages or in the tribals, because they are still living much, much closer to existence. For us, this parting away is very painful. So that's another way wherein we see body centricity at its core. I think I would like to take a pause here at this moment. And if there is any question or anything that anybody would like to share or say,
आपने अभी
you are
तक ये
welcome.
नहीं आपने अभी तक ये नहीं बताया कबीर यहाँ क्या कहना चाहता है, कहना क्या चाहता है वो। आपने इतनी बड़ी बात करी है, आधा घंटा हो गया, लेकिन अभी तक ये नहीं पता लगा कि कबीर क्या कहना चाहता था यहाँ पे। कबीर ने 1 साल या 2 साल में एक दोहा बोला है, दिस वाज क्रक्स। कबीर कभी अपने घर से बाहर नहीं निकला। महात्मा बुद्ध जो थे वो सारी दुनिया घूमे, he has convinced people, डिबेट्स विन करी हैं। कबीर कभी गया ही नहीं कहीं बाहर, घर में ही बैठ के उसने सब कुछ ज्ञान दिया उसको। मतलब यहाँ कबीर क्या कहना चाहता है, आपने पता नहीं क्या बातें करी हैं लेकिन कुछ बताया नहीं। कबीरा गर्व न कीजिए देखी दई सुरंग, बिछड़े पे मेला नहीं जो केचली भुजंग। समझ तो आती है लेकिन मुझे तो एज एक्सपर्ट आपको सुनना चाहता था मैं। I have studied a lot about.
If you are coming with a perception, Kabiji, I'm sorry, I may not fit into that.
No perceptions, but you must explain what does he want to convey us.
What exactly, Kabiji, what exactly Kabir wanted to say, Kabir only can tell.
That is fine, but you are here to talk about Kabir only, not about your. Even you have not given us details कि आप क्या understand कर पाए उससे। आप तो पता नहीं क्या।
What else am I talking? Do you think? What else do you think?
लेकिन क्या यहाँ कबीर ने क्या बोला है, प्लीज। अगर हम भी तो टाइम निकाल के बैठे हैं आपके साथ में, यू मस्ट
अगर आपको
कबीर क्या कहना चाहता है।
कबीर जी, I'm sorry for this, but अगर आपको whatever I'm saying it is sounding to be worthless, then you will have to figure out. मैंने कबीर को ऐसे ही समझा है।
नहीं, लेकिन समझा क्या है यहाँ, कुछ तो बताओ ना। आपने कुछ नहीं बताया अभी तक।
अब क्या जानना, देखिए किसी भी दोहे का
कबीर क्या कह रहा है यहाँ पे।
किसी भी दोहे का एक होता है भावार्थ जो, और एक होता है शब्दार्थ। शब्दों का एक अर्थ होता है।
भावार्थ नहीं बताया ना अभी तक।
मैं तब से भावार्थ ही तो बता रही हूँ, और क्या बता रही हूँ।
क्या बताया, एक लाइन में आप बताओ कबीर क्या कहना चाहता है यहाँ पे। प्लीज डोंट माइंड, अगर हम यहाँ बैठे हैं डिस्कस कर सकते हैं ना।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल डिस्कस
आपको बुरा लगना रहा हो।
नहीं, मुझे बुरा नहीं लगता,
क्योंकि मैं बैठा हूँ तो मैं पूछना चाहता हूँ ना कबीर क्या कहना चाहता है यहाँ पे। कबीर ने अगर 1-1.5 साल में एक दोहा बोला है तो कुछ सोच समझ के उसने बोला है।
कबीर ने क्या कहा, कवि जी, कबीर ने क्या कहा, किनसे कहा, किन स्थितियों में कहा, ये कबीर बताएंगे। ये उस समय की स्थिति थी, उस समय के श्रोता थे, उस समय की धारणाएं थी जिनके लिए कबीर ने कहा। आज हमारे जीवन में उसका क्या उपयोग है, हमारे लिए तो वो मायने रखता है ना। Anything beyond that is useless for us. Whatever Kabir said was for the people of that time, in that particular context, in that perspective, in that setting. That was useful exactly for them. Now, how does that couplet applies to our life? If we cannot reflect into that, then we will be wasting time. So for me, it's the quality of life that matters. And if quality of one's life does not matter, then yahan pe we are not sitting to talk knowledge. I am not in for knowledge. Yes, Leori. Yes, please.
Yes, this is true of all religions. They were taught at that time for those people. And we are applying it today, but we're applying it, trying to apply it the way it was applied in the time it was taught, which is not right. We have to go deeper into the teachings and see how it applies today, because the teachings, the deeper meaning is eternal.
Correct.
Thank you. I fully agree with everything you have said. It's beautiful. You've gone really deep about the body. I'm surprised. I only knew the name Kabir, and I hear people talking about it. I didn't know much about him. But what you have thought about how we are focused on the body, a long time ago in my life, I was thinking about, because of the body, what all we have created in this world, and then we have forgotten about our creation, and we have got lost in that material creation, and we're completely lost in it. About clothes, about shelter, about food. that we have made those the main things in our life, and we have gone away from the actual reason for clothing, shelter, and food.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Sensi.
Yeah, Richa, it's lovely to listen to you. And I just saw the message that you're going to be talking about Kabir, and I just entered in. And the couplet that you picked up about de wala, I mean, my Hindi and those things are not good.
That's okay. That's okay.
But as I listen to you, I'm reminded of a line from the Bible which says, man does not live just by the bread
Yes.
alone.
Yes.
What you're talking here is exactly the same.
Exactly.
So it's not, you know, Kabir talked about it then, and maybe Jesus talked a little bit later. I don't know when. I don't know the era of the time. I'm not very good at all of this. But they're all talking the same language, and it's a very, very, very deep meaning that you are presenting to us. And it's very nice to hear, Richa.
Nice. Nice. So when we are able to exactly derive some clear understanding that supports us in bringing our life to the right path, that is what is called as grace. That is what is called as blessing. This session has been available to everybody. A few of us chose to be here. A couple of us dropped also because they could not relate to what we are talking about. And as we go ahead, you will see that it's the sensitivity towards your life that you develop that brings you to such places. Nothing else. Nothing else. And yes, I see Leroy wanting to say something.
Yeah.
Leroy, sorry.
Sometimes people get involved in the philosophy. It becomes a very high discussion. You have intellectuals discussing at a very high level. Some people don't understand, and they're lost in the philosophy. And it becomes what I call titillation of the mind.
Yes.
That's all it is, But when you live, you actually live it. Through the experience of living, more will be revealed to you. Through your own experience of living, you come to understand, you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and so just sitting and talking and philosophizing, you go nowhere. That's another form of Maya. You just get wrapped up in that.
Correct. And I have experienced this, that more you become clear about such things in life, then you really know what is the right way of conducting life. Decision making is very, very easy. You will see a lightness coming into your life. And trust me, if these discussions do not make you lighter, if these discussions do not help you shed some certain weight out of your shoulders, then it's futile. But if it brings in you certain openness, some inclusiveness, some compassion, some more sensitivity, then something is happening within you. Then something is surely happening within you. And if you look at what is important in life, what is most important in life, and this is something that I say time and again, and my master used to question this always. What is the purpose of love? You just try and analyze, what is the purpose of love? But is that not what we want centrally in our life? What is the purpose of freedom? And we have so much of ruckus around freedom. We do not understand what freedom is, a different matter. But what is the purpose of being free? Purposeless. What is the purpose of joyfulness? Totally purposeless. You can't reason, you live that. The most important things of life do not come by reason, because what comes by reason can go away as the reason vanishes. They can't be the central. They can't be the central. And so everything that we do, actually we do it for these reasons only. We want relationship to be sweet because that makes us feel good. We want to have that comfort because that makes us feel good. If you peel layer by layer, why do you want a good job? Why do you want to earn? Why do you want a loving child, loving parents, loving friend, loving spouse? All this will come down to the same level. I want to feel good. And at this level, going even deeper is going to be very, very difficult. Why do you want to feel good? Just ask. Why do you want to feel good? You cannot have a rational answer to this. And that tells us that probably the core nature that we have is joyfulness. And that is why we are craving for joyfulness so much. The core nature that we have is freedom. And that is why we always want freedom in anything that we do. Questioned once, and why are you wanting to hold me and not allow me to do things? Allow me do things. No, this allow me do things becomes so important. And I'm not right now getting into what is the right thing and wrong thing. So, but just bringing into our awareness that how important one freedom is for us. And everything that we do finally boils in that. And that is an indication that that is possibly our true nature, which we long for. Another way of looking at it is, in our life, ambition plays such an important role. We do something, we reach a milestone, and then we do not stop. Then there is a next milestone, and then there is a next milestone, and then there is a next milestone, and the process keeps going on. Ever thought of why? Why don't we stop? If fulfillment was important, then we achieved one ambition. No, why aren't we fulfilled? Why is that fulfillment momentarily? Why is it not eternal? Why does that not satiate us for the entire life? And that will give you some indication that possibly you want to expand and expand and expand infinitely. So infiniteness, eternity is our fundamental nature. And that's where inclusivity also comes into picture. But when we are away from the existence, then we also drift away from our real nature. And that is why there is so much of suffering. This word disease, and many of us know, it is displacement of the ease that we have, which we call the disease. When this displacement of ease happens on a higher intensity, it manifests in the body in form of what we call as disease, which we want to get treated just physically. And there are enough research and enough evidence that has proven that without really any medicine or treating yourself only physically, you can actually treat things even like cancer by the right mental makeup. And a few important things that have been always emphasized upon is gratitude. Gratitude is an indication of surrender. Until unless we can surrender, we can't feel gratitude. Gratitude says, I'm so thankful for all that I have. And that's what surrender is. I'm not asking for anything more. So you will notice that everything that any saint has said, and Kabir for us has become one medium today to discuss. They all bring us back closer to our real nature. closer to existence. Yeah. So if this couplet is clear, let's take the next one. Okay. Something related to that, there is this couplet that says, Ishan, the body is extension of mind. Actually, they go together. They go together. Body and mind, they go together. So body is the sthula form and mind is the sukshma form. The body is the gross form and mind is the subtle form. That's the only difference. But without the body, then we have the science gets into the sthula sharir and the sukshma sharir and the karan sharir, the causal body and the subtle body and the gross body. But in our form, they go together. Mind is what? Yeah.
Isn't the body the manifestation of the mind? I mean, as we go, like from Annamaya Kosh to Manomaya Kosh to Anandamaya Kosh, right? So from it is coming from top to bottom. So the body is the grossest, which is the last manifestation. I mean, which is the grossest manifestation. So it comes after the mind, as far as I'm concerned.
So what Ishan is talking about, he's talking of the Pancha Kosha, which the Shastras talk of. The grossest is the body, which is called Annamaya Kosha, because it is created by Anna, or the food that we eat. So that is the Annamaya Kosha. The next is called Pranamaya Kosha, which is the prana that we talk of. So all that is that Prana Kosha. Then there comes Manomaya Kosha. Manomaya Kosha is about the mind, about the Antahakaran that we were talking of. That is what Manomaya Kosha is. Then the next is Jnanamaya Kosha, which is the knowledge sheath. And then finally is the Anandamaya Kosha, or the sheath of the bliss. So it is not in form of Ishan. One is extension of other. It is in the form of which is the grossest and which is the subtlest. They all will be together. But if I live on the grossest level, on the grossest pedestal, all I experience is the Annamaya Kosha, or the Sthula Sharira, the grossest body. If I start sharpening my senses to be able to look beyond the physicality, then I can understand the Pranamaya Kosha, which is all about the energy body, the pranas. If I work even more on my perception, I move to the even subtler level, then I start to understand mind, how it functions. Then I become conscious about the Manomaya Kosha. Then I'm operating from the Manomaya Kosha. That does not mean, and a simple question to ask that could be helpful to us is, who is saying that mind is extension of the body? Is this body not supporting you in saying this? Who is knowing that the mind?
Knowledge, no.
If you do not have this body, if you do not have this body, can you experience that knowledge?
No, I cannot express it. But for that, the laws of nature cannot be changed. No.
It is
whether I can experience it or not, but it will not change the laws of nature of how things exist to be.
How things exist to be is, at this moment, I think it would not be wise for us to really create a what do I call solid stuff that this is how it exists. We have read a lot of things. Possibly we are very well read. That is yet to be part of our everyday living. That is yet to thrive in us. And once that happens, it is better for us to speak. And that is why people who know, they move into silence. Because then they know all this is not
Yeah.
needed at all.
Yeah. True.
But for us who are on such a gross level, this is helpful to become more conscious, to become little more, move towards more subtle part of life.
Yeah, of course, it's just a learning experience. Yeah. But if you put in this way, like we all believe, as far as Hindus are concerned, they believe in the rebirth, reincarnation, right? So the person or the soul carries that sort of karma and reborn into something else to express those karmas, right? Of the karmas or the impressions that the soul or the mind carries. So the mind takes another body, So that in that sense, I'm saying that the body is the expression of mind.
Well, this is not such an easy explanation, the entire reincarnation, etc. And then I look at it like this. One, I do not know about any life beyond this life. And I don't think I would know about any life, even if I take birth or rebirth or so, after this life. For me, this is the only life that exists. And that is why it becomes even more important for me to put this life into use, because I really do not know what's going to happen next. Who is going to take what form and what body? And will I really remember that there was somebody called Richa who wanted to blah, blah, blah? No idea. That's one way of looking at it. And that demands that we become a little sensitive about how we are handling our life. The second thing is, this process is very complex. This process is very complex. Who takes birth? We really do not know. If we look at Upanishad and then we look at anybody, even Kabir talks of Nirgun Ram. That's the word he uses. Because typically Ram, we know as a deity, as a god in the tradition. So, and he is of course not referring to that Ram of the Ayodhya. He is not referring to that Ram. And Ram is just a word he has picked up to depict, because when you're talking, there has to be something to express. So that's a word he picks up. And the word Nirgun is added to bring to us that clarity that he is talking of the Ram which does not have, or who is beyond any qualities, who is not the one who is full of qualities. The Ram that we know has so many qualities, and we talk of all that. How ethical he was, how Maryada Purushottam he was, and blah, blah. So he's not talking of that Ram. He's talking of Nirgun Ram, which is Brahma, that he's actually indicating to. So now when you look at that, it says, it is never born, never dies. So then who is born? What is the soul? These are very confusing words to me. Somebody might have the clarity, wonderful. I am still looking for that clarity. And I'm not willing to settle for less. I'm not willing to settle for beliefs. So I do not know who takes birth. What is this thing that I can call as soul? What is this soul? But what has come to me as an understanding is this. You see, if I have to use an example, then if you look at the ocean, which is very vast, it is, if at all I can connote it with Brahma, or the oneness, or the source, or the center, whatever word that you would like to use for it, then the different waves that come up and fall, they are like we people. Each wave that rises has its own characteristics and falls down and gets mingled with the Brahma or the ocean. Now, can one wave say, I was the same wave which took birth, which just caught up some time back, a few seconds back, a few minutes back, few hours back? Can any wave say that? No, it can't. Because the moment it goes back into its source, everything is merged. Everything is merged. Now you cannot differentiate where was this one wave which just came up and went off. And is this the second wave which is coming, or is this wave that is coming also has got certain qualities of many other waves? So this process, which we call as reincarnation, is confusing and complex. Then the question is it useful for me to know about it? If it helps me to clarify certain doubts, that allows me to move on to the path of dharma, please go ahead and find out. But if it doesn't have that relevance, then that may not be needed to know at this point in time. Maybe when we are ready, as Zen says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, the knowledge, the jnana would come. Yeah. So at this moment, what I'm more concerned is about my patrata. What I'm more concerned is how willing a vessel I am. What ego states are playing in me. Am I still operating all the time from the center of I-ness? Am I so solidified in my existence? Because, more solid we become, more we will lose life. We will end up not being able to dance with all the ups and downs of life. Because that demands that we be very liquid, we be very flexible, we be very agile. That only allows us to really immediately, spontaneously act in the given situation. What is spontaneous action that Krishna talks about? An action which is not the result of thought process or planning. An action that emerges because of the demand of the situation. An action that emerges because of that wisdom of being on the path of dharma. And that is why spontaneity becomes so important in life. And spontaneity is what will allow you to be playful also. Now, if somebody asked me a question sometime back, I was very obese. I had
just
put on a lot of weight.
Like to interfere you here. I think everyone is okay with this conversation because I think you were about to start the second Doha.
We are very close to 9 o'clock, so we will not start the second Doha because it will again take good time. But I think this is useful to each one of us. It may not be the question that has come through us, but these are certain questions that belong to each one of us. So they make a lot of sense. So I was sharing that at one point in time, I was very obese. A lot of weight. And when I shed weight, somebody asked me, Richa, what have you done? You have lost so much weight. And my immediate answer was, yeah, these days assignments are not coming. I'm not able to take care of my basic living. That's why I have lost weight. And there was no thought when I answered, and people who were sitting around, they started to laugh. Look, she's answering anything. Because I was coming from playfulness. I was not coming from, oh my God, I've done so much to shed weight. Otherwise, if you look at it, actually take an effort to shed weight. But it just came up. What was needed? Am I coming from ego? Am I coming from that center? Or am I coming from that playfulness? That becomes the key to live a life which is thriving. Anybody has any question about all that we have discussed till now? Or anything that they would like to share? We started with some 29 people and we are 15 here right now. Yes, Larry.
Yeah, so I was, when you were talking about the Atma, the soul, like who reincarnates. You're right, this is, it's a very deep discussion. But whenever we use analogies like the ocean and the wave, we can never really use analogies to explain because we are talking about something that is material, right? Whereas the Atman is, it's not material, it's unseen, right? So to say that the wave, I mean, I think about this also, to say that the wave goes back in the ocean, and then can that wave say it was another wave before? But that is something physical.
So
analogies never really work. We try to explain by
Leroy,
using analogies.
Leroy, what happens is we must appreciate that any example has its limitation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, I'm not refuting what you're saying.
So
I'm just trying to share something.
Correct. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
Analogy
I've tried so many times by using analogies. Sometimes it's very difficult because this thing is beyond words.
Yes.
It cannot be expressed in words. You can only know it by direct experience, right?
Agreed.
So when the well, let me say one thing. How am I conscious of myself? By everything around me, through the senses. Because I'm looking at you now on the screen, I'm looking at something that makes me conscious of myself. We don't think that way, but that's how it works. Everything around us is all the time making us aware of our presence. If you take everything away, which we cannot even imagine because we have never seen nothing, right? But if nothing was there, if you take everything away, nothing that can be experienced through any of the senses, right? Then you will not be aware of yourself. It is everything around me that makes me aware of my presence. This presence is so fragile that if everything disappears, finished. Even if this body is still here, the experience will be totally different because there's nothing to make me aware of this body. So it is everything around me that is proof of my existence. So it is the Atman that in order to become conscious of itself, that the material world was created, to become conscious of itself, to know itself. And it is by everything around me that I know myself, right? So
that is what is called as duality.
Yeah, exactly. So when in this experience, from my understanding of reincarnation, in this experience, whatever impressions are created, right? And if that karma is not completely worked out here, then that has to be worked out later because there's cause and effect. That will come. It is that a bundle of impressions. Then
I'll hold you here. I'll hold you here. I'll hold you here.
Yes.
A few things that we must understand at this point in time. This is one question I always used to ask, that if every cause has an action and there is a result, this chain continues. Even when I do good deeds, or what you may roughly can call as good karma, it is reaping some results, and the bad ones are also reaping some results. So what is constant is result. Good or the bad, the result continues, which means I continue. Which means I continue. Then where is the question of moving beyond? How would one move beyond? Because result is something that is happening every moment. Every thought is an action and it is breeding result. Right. So how does one move beyond? And this is where it becomes important to know that it is not the action, it is the doer which is important.
It's not the action, it's the intention behind the action. That is what binds you. It's not the action. When you do it without
and who has the intention?
The self.
Who is this
The
self which
is,
has the extension? Who is this self which has the intention?
That is what we call Atma, right? The self.
No. Atman has no intention. Atman has no intention. Ego has intentions. Intentions are always of the doer.
No, I agree. Sorry, that's what I mean when I said Atma. Okay, it's ego, right? It's Atma when it's in the body, that individuality, that being, that person, right? So that's what I'm saying. That bundle of impressions, when that karma is not complete, it has to reincarnate. It has to for it to continue, because like every action has a result. Okay, you are taking one single action, but if you take a bunch of actions, that will also have a resultant, a different result. Same if you take this whole thing as one complete lifetime, that whole thing has to have a result. Take all the actions put together. It has created one big result which has to come. And it's only, and that is what, for that to be fulfilled, it can only be fulfilled in a physical body, because it was generated in a physical body. So it will keep on until you are totally free of this body, free of the attachment, free of everything, and then you don't take rebirth. That's my understanding of reincarnation.
This exactly is what I'm questioning, that how do you be free? Because everything that is happening will result into action, into result. Its residue is going to be some result. That is bound to be there.
No. When you don't get attached to the action, then you're not attached to the result. That's freedom. Freedom is not ceasing action. Yeah. You have to act.
The action is, yes, what you rightly said is the action is something that is inevitable. It is a doer that has to cease to exist. Even when we say that the attachment to action has not to be there, who is this who is going to get attached to this? It is the one who thinks that he acts. And that is why spontaneous action has got so much of importance, because spontaneous action happens without the presence of doer. It is only the action that is happening. And then there is no binding. Then there is no attachment. Then there is freedom.
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying also.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. But we were talking,
yes,
I was coming back to the point of the reincarnation, because I also have asked I come from a Christian background myself, right? So for me, I was totally indoctrinated by that until I broke away from it completely. Because when I started reading all the other philosophies and all the Indian books and everything, then it threw more light on the teachings of Jesus. And now I see so much deep meaning in it.
Correct.
So now I don't belong to any particular religion or anything. I don't care. It is, I don't see myself as that.
The word religion has got corrupted. These things that we call as Hindu, Christian, Islam and all that, they are not religion, they are communities. If you look at the real meaning of religion, the word that is used in Hindi for religion is called dharma. And what is dharma? Dharma is that, the Shastra says, dharyate iti dharma, that which sustains is dharma. So what will sustain you? And sustain is not that I am able to go through my everyday. That is not sustenance. Sustenance is what allows you move to the zone of eternity, because that's the real sustenance. Then it is the right path, and which will be different for different people. And I've always been insisting on this. Depending upon the conditionings that we come from, each one of us has got a different conditioning, and hence the path is going to be special or unique for each one of us. And as in the beginning I said, Krishnamurti said, truth is the pathless land. And that's why we are together, because at certain place our conditioning are also the same, yet we will all pick up different thing from the same talk, because we have different conditioning. What might would have hit you may not would have hit somebody else. They would have got something else. Somebody else would have got something else. Priyaji would have got something else. Mamtaji would have got something else. Poonamji would have got something else. Everybody would have got something else depending upon what their conditioning is and depending upon what their patrata at this moment is. If asked to write a summary by each one of us, we all will have different summaries. So that's where the uniqueness comes into picture. So at the end of the day, what commonly boils down for each one of us is, what is the quality of my life? How sorted am I here? How peaceful am I here? How joyful am I? And then all these theories of Panchakosha and all the what Shastras said, they all come to support us in this journey so that we expand our clarity and we do not get into beliefs. The journey is of the knowing, not of believing.
Absolutely.
So that knowing has to get stronger and believing has to go. And more this knowing gets stronger, more the doer starts ceasing to exist. So let's see where we are currently, what is supporting us in moving ahead and take that baby step. Please do not be in a hurry immediately. It takes a little time. For each one of us, we all might take different time. It takes a little time, and hence baby steps become important. And what is most important is to stay in touch with these things. You stay in touch through some videos, some discussion groups, some books, whatever, but stay in touch.
Yes.
That's very, very, very important, non-negotiable. Because for us to fall back is very easy.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So there's a common saying in English, seeing is believing, but actually the opposite is true. Believing is seeing.
There is no need to even believe. There is no need to even believe.
No, but I'm saying what you believe, you will see.
That's why people start to hallucinate. That's why people start to hallucinate.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold on believing. Hold on believing. Hold on believing. Hold on. You know, mind loves judgment. Mind loves that I want, what is the crux of it? The way Kaviji was insisting, what is the meaning of it? Without that, it was so difficult for him to settle down. Mind wants final judgment, solution, one thing that it can hold on to. You know, it wants something to hold on to. It is such an insecure thing. To become comfortable in the space wherein I am neither this side nor this side will allow you to move ahead. If you want to stick to one side, then you will get stuck to what we call as duality.
Yeah.
And as the meaning says, duality is something, they look opposite like day and night. They look opposite, but they are very complementary. Day cannot exist without the existence of night. And so is true for night. And the very nature of mind is, it is dual in nature. You think of anything and you will find its dual opposite. And that is why we have people who are either at this end or at this end, and then there is a conflict. And that is why it is so easy for a theist to get converted into atheist, a theist to get converted into theist. Because what is central in both of them is they are both believing something. One believes in God, one does not believe in God. None of them are living in knowing. Knowing is something which is unshakable. Nothing in this world can shake you. Nothing, absolutely nothing. You are so settled in that. And the couplet that we just discussed about Kabir, it is one way of moving closer to knowing away from believing. Know what your body is. Know how you look at your body, how you treat it, what perception you have about your body, how centered you are in your body. And decide, is that the right thing to do? Would you like to stay as close to your body as you had been? Because it might not currently look to be so, but it will bring you suffering. It is the death of body that we mourn. It is that we are scared of. This body gives us a sense of identity and existence, and we are scared of this identity and existence going away. So use the couplet to become closer to knowing. And I think we can just have one last line from you, maybe Leroy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will, you mentioned earlier about joy and freedom, and it just occurred to me that if you want something, it comes because of memory. You have known that before, and it's missing, and so you want it. If you have not experienced something before, you don't know what you want. What you want comes from what you've experienced, and it's missing, and you want it. So the Atma, before it incarnates, I'm just saying, okay, it is joyful, it is free, right? When it comes into the body, it's a different experience. It is that longing for freedom and joy, which was already there, that makes us constantly want to have that same experience again. And then we get lost by trying to find it in material things. But if we get back, if we meditate, get back in touch with that Atma back there, we will experience it. And so more and more meditation, more and more of that experience will slowly make us realize that it's not in the material world, it is there. And then once we have that realization, we can enjoy the material world without being attached. And we get even more joy out of that. Because when you are attached, then the suffering comes.
That's what Buddha talks of. That's what Buddha talks of when he talks of his four important principles. The first is life is suffering. The second is suffering is because of the attachment.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, that is how it functions. And as the attachment dies, and these couplets actually help us to move towards that. As the attachment dies, that insecurity also comes down, and you will start experiencing joyfulness. So experiencing is another word that I refrain myself to. Why and how we'll talk about in some other session. I think it's time
Wonderful.
that
Beautiful.
we close the session. I just wanted to reiterate, every Thursday we sit to discuss life through these couplets to understand. And when I said, let's look at Kabir from the eyes of truth. So what must hit you is what we are talking. Is it something that is giving you some sense of eternity, some sense of freedom, some sense of unburdening, some sense of joyfulness? If that's happening, stay, join as many times as possible. Don't miss the session is what I would say. And look how it is bringing those changes in you. You can always use the group to ask questions or maybe one or two liners. My request is always never to bombard the group, because of course we have so much to say, so much. So let's close with the prayer, or let's sit for a while. And yes.
Will we get the recording?
Yes, the recording will be on YouTube, and you will get the recording.
Thank you so much.
You will have it here.
Thank you very much. Wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Just sit straight, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and while breathing out, we chant Om thrice. Om. Om. Oh. Thank you. See you all next Thursday. Stay blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richa ji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome session. Thank
See you next time.
Yeah, sure.